This weather pattern is getting very troublesome. Gabrielle is about to get stronger. Welcome to the weather forecast on VTB TN8 channel. Dear friends, in today's forecast, we'll be looking at temperatures and precipitation through the end of September across North America. We'll also be looking at a larger storm system that could potentially hit the central and eastern United States, which could bring high chances of tornadoes, damaging winds, and some hail. Especially for the Ohio Valley next week. A strong Arctic wind is coming. We could see cold air return to the central and eastern states. And then we'll be looking more closely at the tropical weather update in both the Atlantic Basin and the Pacific Basin. We have a tropical depression and a couple of tropical waves that are very close, if not moving into the Caribbean. If you like this video, please share it with your friends, family and on social media. Comment in the comments section below the video. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe to the channel to follow. And we'll start with what's going on across the country today. And you can see we've got a little change in the central United States. There's a very tight low pressure system that's forming here, stretching across the upper Midwest or the northern plains. The cold air associated with this system here is spreading across parts of the Mississippi Valley, bringing us some unsettled weather throughout Sunday here. And then we've got a little bit of unsettled weather in the southwest. We're going to have a northwest-southeast jet stream coming through the desert southwest, and then it's going to curve here into the central United States. South Dakota, Minnesota, that's where our low pressure is here, and south of the low pressure is stronger. And so much so that we have the potential for some severe weather late this afternoon and tonight for our friends in southern Nebraska down to Kansas here, especially central Kansas. And yes, there is a risk of tornadoes. While the main threat will be strong winds and hail, I feel like there is a chance of some rotation with these storms, and tornadoes are possible here near Colby, toward Hill City, Hays, even Great Bend, Kansas, and then some tornadoes will extend along and south I-80 into southern Nebraska. The rainfall in this system will not be too dramatic. We won't be breaking the drought in the Mississippi Valley or anywhere like the Twin Cities, here toward La Crosse, Wisconsin, Milwaukee. We might only see about a ½ inch or so of rain with this system. You could get some heavier rain near Omaha, Kansas City, and again down toward Wichita. Look at the stronger trough that is pushing into the Yukon and British Columbia provinces in western Canada. But we still have a ridge of high pressure in the Rocky Mountains. There's going to be a lot of warmer and higher than normal conditions in the forecast across parts of Canada, the Northwest Territories, Alberta, Saskatchewan and Manitoba. So the Yukon, the west coast there, British Columbia and the southwest US, we're going to start to see a little bit of pressure drop, and we're going to start to see some cooler air. And by the end of the week, the rain chances are going to be more widespread, with the most widespread precipitation coming into northeastern Oklahoma, the Tulsa area, southeast Kansas, southern Missouri, Branson, Joplin. Those areas all the way up to the heel of Missouri could see a steady ½ inch, an inch and a half of rain throughout the weekend. Snowfall is going to be reserved for areas further north. A few feet of snow in the higher elevations of Alaska, especially southeast Alaska, the Yukon, the Western Territories, northwest into northwest British Columbia. High pressure has been in place over Canada and will continue into next week, and then that high pressure trough will weaken as it moves further inland into western Canada next week. Cooler in Alaska, cooler in western Canada, a little bit cooler down in the southern tier. And then we'll see much of southern Canada, eastern Canada, and the eastern third of the United States with above normal temperatures next week. I feel like there could be a larger storm system to watch in the Ohio River Valley, possibly the mid-Atlantic as we head into the weekend next week. The aggregate guidance is showing much above normal precipitation for that area. The Mississippi Valley here on the Missouri side of the river, is in the sights all the way up to the Ohio River, including Louisville, Lexington, and Nashville south of the Ohio River. High wind risk across parts of Western California. Well, Santa Ana winds can become a real problem as we move into late September. Everywhere else is pretty warm across the board. The 8 to 14 day outlook from September 26th to October 2nd is very similar. We see the West Coast being the coolest. And then it's pretty warm from the Rocky Mountains eastward. Looking at the storm situation in general, we see some of the northern plains and upper Midwest as well as the Southwest getting some rain today. By Sunday the 21st, we'll see more activity in the Northwest into the Rocky Mountains. And we're starting to see general activity pick up in the West and all of the central states, but the East is still relatively dry this weekend. Looking at Monday the 22nd, we're again seeing a lot of the Rocky Mountains, Plains, Midwest, now the Ohio Valley and some of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast getting some rain. So by Tuesday the 23rd, things are looking up. Now we're seeing a full shower pattern in the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast Ohio Valley. And we see the Deep South getting a little bit of rain on Wednesday. Also note that the average rainfall in the Northeast is lower than the Deep South. Looking ahead, Thursday the 25th, we're going to see a very broad area of low pressure stretching across the area south of the Mississippi River. There's a little bit of a cold front. There's a chance for some severe weather across the Deep South and Southeast, at least thunderstorms on Thursday. Friday the 26th, it's moving more into the Southeast, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic areas. And then by Saturday the 27th, much needed rain is going to be coming along the East Coast, more specifically the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. As we get closer to Sunday the 28th, some remnants are still there with some shower activity, but overall it's slowing down. Monday the 29th here in the far south we'll see more rain. So, a tropical depression is just west of the Bahamas. Tuesday the 30th, it's going to be over the Bahamas and it's really developing. We'll see the Ohio Valley deep south-southeast on Tuesday, the 30th here with rain. Also worth noting is a low moving between Hudson Bay and the Great Lakes. Typically, when a low moves into this area, we see colder air moving into the central and eastern states. And we can see this low with a warm front and with a cold front. You can see that you're entering a more severe drought here across the Northeast toward New England. Also here from Tennessee to the Ohio Valley, a large area where your drought is starting to get a little bit worse. Now you can see here for southern and western Texas that's also having a drought problem. It's been picking up and all along the western part of the United States, your drought has gotten worse. As we get into Tuesday, you can see right here that trough of low pressure is forming. We also have two areas of low pressure that are starting to form and it's creating a long-lasting thunderstorm system right here where we could have a lot of thunderstorm accumulation, potentially damaging winds and hail. As you get through Wednesday, it's going to get stronger as it moves south. Now you're bringing that threat of severe weather even further south into the United States. As you get into Thursday, it's starting to stretch further east into the Tennessee Valley, Kentucky. As you get through Friday, it's going to be there. But now the high pressure is moving northeast, and that allows it to be pulled north by this trough coming from Canada. And that pulls it further north as you leave the weekend. We'll look at the fall of 2025, and then as we get into the winter of 2025-2026, we'll look at the temperature and precipitation trends for what you can expect for the upcoming fall and winter. A more variable polar jet from the north, and it's bringing colder air down as you have a ridge of high pressure developing in the North Pacific. It's a blocking ridge of high pressure. That means colder air coming down from Siberia and from the Arctic all the way down into Canada and the northern United States. We also have a Pacific jet stream that's bringing moisture into the Pacific Northwest and Southwest Canada. We also see those jet streams merging through the Ohio Valley into the Great Lakes. That brings an increase in moisture and a wetter trend to the Ohio Valley there and into parts of the Great Lakes and even the Midwest and Northeast. So, let's look at what we're looking at as we move into next month. And it will warm up significantly across the western United States. It could pull some cold air from eastern and central Canada down into the mid-Atlantic and northeast as we move into October, with the possibility of frequent cold fronts across the northeast. But warmer air and drier conditions will likely spread across the desert southwest and the Rocky Mountains into the southern plains. It looks like most of the southeast, including Florida, will be drier in October, and then it will get a little wetter across the Great Lakes into the Ohio Valley, where we could see some storm systems bring some cold air through. Moving into November 2025, note that the ridge of high pressure that was in the west in October will move more eastward in November, closer to the Mississippi River. And it will cover a large portion of the United States in November with a large ridge of high pressure blocking the winds over the central United States. But overall, November looks like it's going to be a warmer month across the Rockies and into the plains and a little bit cooler on the East Coast. So the drought trend that we've seen near the Mississippi Valley down into the Tennessee Valley and the Ohio Valley will still be intact. I think we'll still see some rain opportunities. And then it looks like the Pacific Northwest and Western Canada, Alaska is looking pretty wet, and some parts of northeastern New England are looking wet as we get into November. My frost forecast for fall 2025. Frost and freeze conditions have started earlier across the upper Midwest into the Great Lakes, some parts of the northwest Ohio Valley. December 2025. A big ridge of high pressure in Alaska. That's going to reduce the pressure here. What goes up must go down. And that brings colder air from Hudson Bay in the Arctic down into southern Canada and even the northern tier of the United States. We're likely to have a storm track over the northern United States as we move into December, and that could pull some colder air down. It's going to be warmer in Alaska with a ridge of high pressure blocking it. But it's going to pull cold air from the Arctic and possibly Siberia down into southern Canada and the northern tier of the United States. We could see quite a bit of moisture across the west. And then the northern tier with a persistent storm track through the northern and central plains into the Midwest. The Ohio Valley here of the Great Lakes being cut off a little bit towards the northeast. In the southwest United States, bringing in warmer air as that ridge forms in Alaska. Warmer air there as well, but then it builds up some active weather. I think it's still active in the Pacific Northwest. I think it's a little bit overdone with wet weather in the southwest if that positive PNA is confirmed as we move into January. And then I think we'll have some larger storm systems from the northern Red River Valley up into the Midwest, the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes. This could include some blizzards and snowstorms as we move into January. And finally, by February 2026, I think the polar vortex has had its fill. And it'll pull further south and maybe get displaced into the northern United States with a big ridge of high pressure in the North Pacific. And that's going to be a typical winter picture here where we just have horribly cold weather across the southern Canadian prairies, the northern United States. Warmer in Alaska with a ridge of high pressure blocking in the North Pacific. We have a tropical depression and a couple of tropical waves that are going to get very close, if not moving into the Caribbean. This is Gabrielle. It's going to become a hurricane. It's going to continue to develop based on warm water. One that's going to get close to Bermuda. We'll touch on that, and then we'll be tracking a couple of tropical waves out there. And we're tracking some heavy rains. Like this morning I was trekking the Dominican Republic, biz really from about Hopkins south through Punta Gorda. Now, showing you Guatemala and then other places through Central America and of course through the Caribbean up into some parts of the United States. But very heavy rains. Maybe another 6 inches of rain in some places over the next 3 days. We're going to see some flooding, especially in the central and southern areas, and then we'll be tracking Honduras as well. We're in the Caribbean. This is a tropical wave that's trying to develop a little bit. Gabrielle is becoming a hurricane. Winds are around 80 kilometers per hour right now, 80 kilometers per hour, maybe a little bit higher. I see it getting stronger. Yeah, if it moves a little bit more to the west, that could cause some tropical storm conditions. We'll be fine in Bermuda. And then eventually, as it gets into the North Atlantic, it'll weaken as it transitions from a tropical system to a subtropical system and flows into some of the cooler waters to the north. So we're in the Caribbean, the Bahamas, the east coast of the United States, the Atlantic part of Canada, and also watching some developments south of Mexico. I'll be watching that area in the eastern Pacific as well. As we head into Monday, you can see Bermuda right here. Almost all the models show it to the east. It's rotating around these fronts along the east coast of the United States. The Atlantic part of Canada acts as a barrier. Then as we move into the middle of next week, which is Wednesday, we're going to be watching this tropical wave. That's the one that's getting a little bit closer to Africa at this point, near Cabo Verde. But I'm going to be watching this wave as it gets closer. There's going to be another little spot behind it. So we're going to be dealing with each storm as we move forward. Now, watch for anything that moves toward the Caribbean part of the Gulf because the water is very warm. But let's see Gabrielle absorb some of that warm water. This is Bermuda. And then let's see the tropical waves behind it. This is a sneaky little wave right there with a little bit of rain that's going to start to approach. And then as we get deeper into next week, we're going to be watching both of these areas. So the first storm that will finally bring more rain to the US and British Virgin Islands, where we had flooding a couple of days ago, will increase here, and you can see it here on Thursday. This is the wave that is near Africa right now. That storm will start to approach us in the eastern Caribbean. That's why I mentioned that next week is going to be a busy week with at least some areas of rain. Watch for landslides flooding in Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, El Salvador, and Nicaragua, Costa Rica. Panama is still very busy, but Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. Again, there are some thunderstorms, and like we saw yesterday in parts of Jamaica. If there are any, they could be quite strong. It's not all that consistent. Barbados, St. Lucia, Trinidad. We'll see some areas with showers. And then showers here through Monday. And there's some residual rain from South Florida that's spilling over into the Bahamas, toward Cuba, scattered. But as we get into next week, we're going to be watching tropical waves that are trying to push through. So at the very least, we're going to be watching some areas of flooding. Scattered rain everywhere from Canada as we move out of Manitoba south through the Great Lakes, Wisconsin, patchy West Virginia, and then back over the Corollas. I'll keep you posted on Bermuda. Some areas of rain. Watch for new spots that are coming into British Columbia and the Pacific Northwest. And there's still some activity near Southern California, where we've had a lot of rain. And then we're going to be deeper into next week. This is Wednesday. Gabrielle is in the North Atlantic. So, keep an eye on Atlantic Canada. It's going to continue south and east, but we're going to have some heavy rain by midweek as we move into parts of the United States. And then as we get into next week, we're going to be looking for some swells back across the Atlantic sea lanes as the new tropical waves start to get closer. So in terms of rainfall, it really just depends on whether you get thunderstorms. If you get thunderstorms, gusty winds, and maybe a quick 50 millimeters or 2 inches of rain, up to about 4 inches. So South Florida, Bahamas, south through Cuba, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, watch for some spots of rain. Same with the Cayman Islands. Again, if there's rain, watch for potential flooding. Watch from Haiti, Dominican Republic back to Puerto Rico. We're just going to be busier next week. Anguilla, Saint Martin, Saint Bart, Antigua, Barbuda. Many of us have had rain back in the Virgin Islands over the last few days. Martinique, Saint Lucia, Saint Vincent, the Grenadines, Barbados. Scattered showers extend into Grenada and Trinidad and Tobago. Northern Suriname, a little bit more rain chance. Not as much as Guyana. These are some of the heavier rainfall totals, landslide risk and are watching. But some heavy rains not only threaten landslides but also those rivers. This is western Mexico, but the Yucatan Peninsula has scattered rain. Parts of the southwestern United States to southern California, some additional rain. This will be a drag on more thunderstorm activity as you come back through Oklahoma points to the east. If you like this video, share it with your friends, family and on social media. Comment in the comments below the video. Please subscribe to the channel to follow. Thank you for watching the news on VTB 10/8 channel.